Hey.
Howdy, howdy. Hey. Do.
You can take yourself off camera for these couple minutes if you want to.
No, I'm waiting for people to join. Chit chat.
Yeah.
How you doing, Benjamin?
Yeah.
I'm well enough, thank you.
Good.
Getting over a bout of COVID, actually. So.
Oh, well enough. I guess. Yeah. Today you're hopefully a lot better than yesterday.
Every day.
Right.
How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm in West
Well.
Virginia right now. I've been traveling in North South Carolina all week, and I'm in West Virginia for tonight and heading back home to Northeast Ohio in the morning. So.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
I'll be in West Virginia Sunday.
What part? Yeah, where are you based at, and what part?
I'm in Boston, but I'm gonna go to Huntington to do some on river.
Yeah, not far. Not far. I mean, tomorrow Charleston will be a little closer, but yeah, not far.
Yeah, just doing some field work to support hydropower.
Awesome. Yeah. That's right. Another Benjamin. The Benjamins join early. I like it.
Yeah.
Hello, Benjamin Young. How are you doing?
Mighty fine. How are you doing?
Doing well. Got an exciting call today. 2 great speakers.
That looks like a decent one. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Kelly, do we know where Camille and Katie were? I was just going to make a brief announcement who they are and their names, who they're with, and said they aren't available. But did you have a comment on that or no?
I know Katie is in the field, so she's doing some field work. I don't know exactly where. And then Camille, I am not sure geographically where she is, but she is celebrating her recent marriage.
That's right. Yeah. Perfect.
Looks like we got one of our speakers. Hey, Will.
Hey, Will.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Where are you all located?
I'm in Northeast Ohio typically. Today I'm traveling. I was in the Carolinas all week, and I'm in West Virginia right now currently.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm in DC.
Okay. Is it real hot there because of the heat wave?
Oh my gosh. It is insane how hot it is. Ugh. It's gross out.
Absolutely sweltering.
That's just called money.
That's right. And you're in Chicago, correct? It's not hot there?
Hey?
I'm in Georgia. It's always
Georgia.
Hot here.
Okay.
It's always hot, but I'm from northern Maine, and I've been talking to my mom. It's like supposed to be 95 there.
Wow. That's crazy, yeah. Crazy hot. All right, we're going to give everybody a couple minutes to join the call. And if anyone wants to chime in, 4th of July is coming up. Quick question. Anybody Where do you go 4th of July? What are your plans? Anything fun? Give folks a couple more minutes to join.
Best spot ever for the 4th of July is Chicago, Illinois. Hands down.
I like that. Yeah. I have not done that ever, but I would like to do it someday. Absolutely. Yeah.
Highly recommend. It's because 9 months out of the year, it's overcast and winter and gnarly. And so everybody comes out and celebrates big, and it's a great experience.
Awesome.
Yeah, I usually stay home for the 4th of July because DC can get a little crazy. I mean, very patriotic place. So I prefer to just stay in. Maybe do some grilling on my roof. That's about it.
Very fun. I typically go to a campground about an hour away from our house with family, and we all play golf, and we're out there. All right. Give it one more minute.
Lake Day vibes for me. We got a buddy's cabin up in Lake Lawrence, in Washington. Yeah. So
we love water here. This group, we love water, no doubt. All righty. I say we wait till one more minute till 3:03, and then we'll kick things off. All right, welcome everybody. I'm Norbert Woodhams. I'm the vice chair, one of the vice co-chairs of the group, and today Camille Ellsworth with R Plus Hydro and Katie Rain are both unavailable. And it's just going to be Kelly and I, but we have two great speakers today. Our topic is Dam Safety 101. And our first speaker will be Jillian Lawrence from Hull Street Energy. And our second speaker will be Will Brown from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Before we get into that, I'm going to go through a couple house cleaning items, the stuff updates for us coming up. Plan to join Flow this summer for our summer camp activities. Next month, we will have a climate change and hydro discussion. So be sure to spend your summer with Flow. Start looking into registering for Clean Currents in Portland, Oregon. It's October 7th to the 10th. Flow participants receive 50% off, and the code is FLOW in all caps. If you need help justifying your attendance, check out our past NHA Powerhouse article, and there's some tips and tricks. Kelly will put that article in the chat for everybody. We will have a Flow reception in Portland. The venue is TBD. And we are looking into suggestions, looking at venues right now, and it's going to be a fun one. So if you're out there in Portland, we will definitely have a fun night there. WPTO and NREL, so the Waterpower Technology offices and the labs, are currently in the process of recruiting mentors for the 2025 Hydropower and Marine Energy Collegiate Competition. They're welcoming a record number of teams for this next year, and which spans the 2024-25 academic year. We need mentors passionate about marine energy and hydropower. If you'd like to mentor, please sign up. Mentors will provide real-world experience, technical expertise, and career advice to the students. If you're interested, please fill out the form, and Kelly, once again, will put this in the link for everybody to have. And then finally, last announcement, we have a few survey questions for the group. These questions are coming from the continuation of Ear to the River report. Back in 2023, a World Bank report on gender equality in the hydropower sector showed that women make up 25% of the global hydropower workforce. The amount may be slightly higher in North America, but the industry clearly has a long way to go and reach gender equality. These poll questions that will appear on the screen will help you inform the next iteration of the Ear to the River report on the women in hydro topic area. Please take the time and answer these poll questions. Kelly will post these in the chat. So that is all the announcements I have today, and I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker. Our first speaker is Jillian Lawrence. She is at Hull Street Energy. Jillian is the Vice President of Asset Management and leading the hydropower assets. Previously, Jillian was the Chief Dam Safety Engineer and Head of Engineering at Central Rivers Power, a former portfolio company of Hull Street Energy. She has spent her entire 20-plus year career in the dam safety and hydropower industry And Jillian is also serving on the NHA Board of Directors. Please give it up for Jillian.
Thanks all. Happy to be here. I'm trying to see if we can see my slides because I have a little presentation for you all. So let me know if you can see my slides. Maybe it's not the right screen.
I can see the bottom portion. You still can see a little bit of your. Yep.
Let's see if I can. One second. Let me. It's worse. I know. Let me grab the other screen. All right. This should work, hopefully.
Okay.
There we go.
I'm going to camera off when you have your slides up.
Great.
But thank you for joining.
Okay. Hopefully it's going to work. Anyway, so thanks for letting me attend. I like to start off by saying you can't have dam safety or you can't have hydropower without dam safety. And so really you can have dams in the environment, non-powered, but you cannot really have hydropower without dams. So let's see if I can do the next slide. Briefly, I'll go over hydropower. We have a dam. There's different types of materials that dams are composed of. We'll talk through some of them today. But really, the most simplistic terms is that the dam holds back the reservoir or the fuel that we use to generate power. Just a little schematic of how we hold back the water, how it's transferred into the blades that spin, spinning a shaft, which to the generator, producing electricity and getting out to the grid. And so what I wanted to talk to you is the two types of means and materials that we use in dam construction, namely the earthen dam, and then the other one that we'll look at is the concrete structures. And so I wanted to go over basic terminology. For all dam safety engineers, we denote right and left as we're standing on the crest of the dam here with the reservoir behind us or head pond looking downstream. And so we'll say to the right, abutment is over here, and to the left. And so we use that common terminology so everyone understands when we're saying right and left, as to not confuse the audience that we're talking to. And then other key features are the upstream slope, downstream slope. The abutments is where your earthen section ties into natural grade. And then we have other features as spillways to pass flow. And if this was a hydropower facility, you would have the power plant here. The next slide is showing us potential deficiencies with this type of construction. And so for earthen embankments, what we're always looking for is the compaction and quality of the earthen section. And what we look for is, are we seeing any slumping or low points in the area that could be susceptible to overtopping during a flood event? We're looking for cracking, slumping of material, movement of materials, and either seepage, a change in seepage, either an increase or decrease, or a boil, which would be shown with an internal erosion problem or concern that's bringing materials from the embankment and bringing it out and exposing it to daylight. So those are a few of the things that we look at for an earthen dam. And then for a concrete gravity dam, we have similar terminology with the upstream face and the downstream face, same crest sections, but a notable difference is that if you're standing on the top of the dam, again, with your right and left looking downstream terminology, we also introduce the heel and the toe, which is easy to remember if you just think about standing on the crest of the dam, looking down. It's in similar nomenclature as the way that your foot is facing. And one of the main differences between a concrete gravity structure and an earthen dam is that really we rely on, with the concrete gravity dam, the weight of the concrete and reinforcement materials to resist the overturning and resistive forces, the forces of the head pond. And so those are key elements to look for in a concrete gravity dam. And additionally, we have the same type of deficiencies that we look for with concrete structures. However, so we look for cracking, and we look for seepage or leakage, and we look for the contact at the abutments to see if there's any misalignment, seepage, movement. But the additional aspect that we look at for concrete structures is really the spalling, the material condition of the concrete. Is it spalling? Does it have cracks? Are joints offset? Are you seeing movements between one sections or another, or between lift lines? And so another example of a concrete structure that looks very different in its design and shape is the Amberson Dam. And the concept is very similar to the concrete structure, except you'll see that they have this buttress and slab construction. And the reason that this was a popular construction design is that this came out of the need to reduce the amount of concrete. If you recall, a few slides ago, we talked about just the sheer mass of concrete resisting the water load. This design was able to still resist the water load using much less concrete, but the same mechanism of transferring the water forces to the foundation and the abutments and against the buttresses. And I think this is the last dam construction that we'll look at. This one is a timber crib structure. The basic design is putting in this wooden timber and filling the void spaces between the cross members with either ballast or rock fill. This picture is of a FERC-regulated dam in Boise, Idaho that was constructed in the early 1900s using this technique, and has since then been overlaid with concrete reinforcement. And so the reason I wanted to show some of those different construction materials of dams is because when we talk about the way that dams fail and the condition of dams, the material and the construction are critical pieces. And so getting into a little bit of the FERC dam safety that leads us into the rest of the dam safety programs that we do as a regulated entity is FERC. First and foremost, looks at the hazard classification of a dam. And what that is an analytical study that hypothetically fails a dam using the worst case scenario. So applying the probable maximum precipitation or other precipitation events to the drainage area, and then failing the dam in the worst worst case scenario. And so based upon that, we look downstream to see where that flood failure flows go, and we look to see what risk it poses to the downstream area. And so if there is even one loss of life envisioned, one or many thousands, the dam's classified as a high hazard. A significant hazard doesn't have any loss of life envisioned, but it does pose significant impacts to the downstream, which could be economic or environmental or loss of lifeline facilities. And then a low hazard dam is really looking at the loss of generation to the asset owner with limited downstream impacts. So we don't envision the flood flows really leaving the banks or significantly impacting any roadways, any homes, any businesses, those kinds of potential impacts that could occur. So the reason that we look at the impact of the failure is because once we know the hazard classification, it helps guide our dam safety monitoring. And so as you can see, we have several different types of documents that we prepare for each facility specific to how we're going to monitor it. So for example, the STID, the supporting technical information document, really gives us the history of the structure. It goes through the potential failure modes that we'll talk more about in the next few slides. It goes through drawings, it goes through construction, operation, site geology, stability, and hydrology and hydraulics. So basically is the dam, it gives us information on the dam as it relates to how it might perform under a flooding event, under an earthquake event, and general operations. The DSSMP is built out of the failure mode analysis. It tells us how we're going to perform surveillance and monitoring of the structure, what key things that we need to look out for, and what things we need to implement instrumentation-wise to monitor for. The DSMR is a snapshot of 1 year. I equate it to kind of your health and wellness checkup visit with your doctor to kind of see how you're performing. And the failure mode analysis, potential failure mode analysis, is all the ways and vulnerabilities based on the type of dam that you have and its auxiliary features that you have, how you could fail the dam or how it could fail or misoperate or perform or become damaged. And all of these really become an effective dam safety monitoring program for the dam. The ODSP, which is the Owner's Dam Safety Program, is how an asset owner, it codifies their responsibilities and their actions of how they're going to maintain and operate their facility in compliance with FERC and how they're going to perform and implement their dam safety program. And so really what this slide is saying is that to have an effective dam safety program, you really need to have all of these elements in conjunction and reflecting upon each other so that you have a comprehensive program. And so I talked a little bit about the failure modes. We'll go over them with a little bit more in depth, but basically dam safety is really about the observation and analytical data that you get on the performance of your dam. So, and the way that we go about identifying ways that we look to perform this surveillance is by identifying any known vulnerabilities or potential failure modes. And so I showed that earlier slide about some of the differences between an earthen structure and a concrete structure because while there was some similarities, there were some key differences that we look at. And so when we go to do a potential failure mode analysis, what we're looking at is an initiator. What event needs to occur for failure of the dam? It could be flood related, it could be earthquake related, it could be just to deterioration or aging of the structure, human error, misoperation, or malfunction. But that alone doesn't cause a dam to fail. What we need is the failure mechanism. How does it progress? And what's the step-by-step progression of it? And so you have a flooding event, you have an earthen dam, the flood rises up to a low point on the crest and it begins to overtop. So now not only do you have the initiator of the flood, but you also have the failure mechanism in that you have a low point in the crest, the flood raises up and begins to overtop, and then you have erosion of the earthen embankment. And then the resulting impact on the structure is that it progresses without any intervention and ultimately ends up as a failure of the dam. And so why those failure modes are important is when you build your dam safety monitoring plan, you want to include those failure modes in there in some manners. And what you want to do is to focus, whether it's your dam safety staff or your hydropower staff or both, you want to focus their eyes and their visual observation of the structure to the failure modes that are most likely to happen and have the largest consequences, and so that they know exactly what to look for. And so the dam safety monitoring plan really comes out of the failure mode. It's developed off the basis of the failure mode. And then it includes some of the failure modes of how will we know if this failure mode is likely to initiate or start. Well, we can install some either piezometers if we're concerned about the phreatic surface throughout an embankment and we're worried about seepage at an earthen structure, or weirs if we're seeing a concentrated flow. We want to be able to monitor it so that we quantifiably know whether we're seeing a change in that flow. If we just use visual observation, it's very hard to tell year after year, day after day, if you're seeing a changed. Inclinometers measure slope indications to let you know if you're seeing movement on your slope, and crack meters really show you any growth and change in development of a crack, if it's a crack that had happened long ago and hasn't progressed anymore, or if it's if it's seeing continual movement. And so, as I've said before, the plan really is how you're going to perform your dam safety inspections and your surveillance and monitoring for the project. And then your report is a snapshot of the year. How did your asset perform for that year? And you're going to have things in that report that include your inspection checklist of what you're visually observing. Did you see any animal burrows? Have you seen any crackings? Do you see any low points? Have you seen any spalling of your concrete? And it'll also have all of your data from your piezometers and your weirs and your crack meters if they're installed at your facility. And so with those two together, you have your plan of how you're going to observe and inspect your facility, and then you have your report of what's actually happening so that you can look historically back and see how the asset's been performing over the years. And so we talked a little bit about the DSMP and the DSMR. We talked a little bit about the supporting technical information document, and the next document is the emergency action plan. And so you can have your supporting technical document, and you can have your DSMP and your DSMR. Those are all going to be how you're performing inspection. But what happens when you have an event? Well, this is where the emergency action plan comes in. And what it is it's a prepared document for high and significant hazard dams. It's a requirement for those dams. You can certainly prepare an emergency action plan for a low hazard dam, even though the consequences of failure are not as significant as a high and significant hazard dam. But why it's important is that this EAP document really identifies first and foremost what the potential failure modes could be at the dam, when to activate an emergency action plan, when do you need to notify people that you're having an issue with your structure, and then it follows up with pre-planned actions that need to be followed by your operators and your personnel should you have a dam incident that warrants an EAP activation. And so the dam owner is the responsible party for the development of the EAP because they know their asset well. They've done all the studies for it. We maintain the EAP, we exercise the EAP, but we have a lot of involvement and review by some of our emergency management agencies and our downstream communities, and so that they can best help us implement the emergency action plan should it need to be activated. And And so what the emergency action plan is once an incident has been identified at your structure, for example, you have an earthen embankment, you have been monitoring seepage for a long period of time in accordance with your DSSMP. That's one of the areas that you're surveilling, and you've gone out to the site, and now you're noticing that it is no longer, well, it's continuing to seep, but in addition to that, it's turning into a boil, which means it's the water is bringing material with it. So it looks like chocolate milk. It looks like it's erupting into a small volcano. You can see the interior sediment and soils from the embankment. And so that change from just monitoring seepage to the actual bringing of material out would warrant an EAP activation. And so what you would do is you would pull out your emergency action plan document, you would open it up to the notification flow chart, and you would make telephone calls. And what that does is it notifies all of the stakeholders in your EAP that you are having an issue at your structure, and it puts them on notification. If it's enough that you think it's potential and imminent, the emergency management responders may begin evacuations, so that in the interest of dam safety, our first and foremost is always public safety and the downstream community. And so getting them out of harm's way and notifying them of the event that we're having at our structure is first and foremost. And once we put the notifications out, we as asset owners go back and kind of get to work and try to implement some of the tools that we have in our dam safety toolbox to control the seepage and reduce the boiling. So we try to enact any preventative measures so that we don't have a catastrophic failure. And so to gain control of the situation is really what we're trying to do. But so out of the EAP, the notification flow chart and the inundation map are really the key two documents. And like I said before, the notification flow chart tells you who you're going to call and what priority, and the inundation map gives a visual of the areas that that are likely to have flooding impacts, and it also gives some good information of what those depths are and what the arrival times are. So all key and critical components when you are evacuating downstream. So and the last document is the ODSP. This document really is not just a site-specific document, so not project-specific, but it is the owner. So the company that can own one or several hydro facilities. It's really their commitment to dam safety, to their dam safety responsibilities, and it's not limited to the inspection and operations, but it also means that we acknowledge the responsibility of owning a dam. We allocate resources, including personnel, financial resources. It gives a clear designation of responsibility of who would enact EAPs, who's responsible for dam safety at your facility. And then the last two, that you have clear and open communication throughout your organization about your dam safety practices and program. And two, that it's a learning environment, because as in all things, we continue to learn. We learn through past failures. We learn through new technologies. We learn from each other. So, and what I usually say at our facilities is that if you see anything that looks amiss or not right, it's to say something. And so in dam safety, it's all about visual observation and reading data and instrumentation and looking for changes, whether you're seeing increases, decreases, just any change is warranted to elevate it up to your dam safety team and engineering team, a third party for investigation. And basically, I think we're were it. I have some additional resources if you're interested. This was super quick. So anyway, that's it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jillian. Yeah, we're going to hold questions until the last 10, 15 minutes. And we're going to move on to our second speaker. So thank you, Jillian. We'll have questions for you at the end for sure. That was awesome. Our next speaker is Will Brown, and Will Brown is the regional engineer for FERC's Division of Dam Safety and Inspections in the Atlanta Regional Office. Prior to joining the commission in 2010, Will worked for the Natural Resources Conservation Service in Georgia and served on an active duty in the U.S. Army. Will is registered professional engineer in Georgia and has a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering, as well as a master's in engineering management. Please turn it over to Will. Thank you, Will.
All right. Can you see my slides okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Norbert was muted, but yes.
Okay, just making sure. All right. All right, so I'm going to talk about dam safety and FERC's programs. I appreciate this opportunity to come and talk to your committee today and share my perspective on dam safety. The takeaways, I'm going to focus on these second two items because Jillian's covered the kind of the key dam safety terms and concepts. And I'm going to talk about the purpose of dam safety and why we need regulatory oversight, as well as some changes to our regulations. So we've covered most of the vocabulary in Jillian's presentation, but I'm going to talk about a couple of items here as they are going to apply to our new regulations. We do these independent consultant inspections. They're called Part 12D inspections. We require them for our licensees every 5 years on high hazard dams or dams that are large, either have large reservoirs or above a certain height. And these are where these independent consultants are experts on dam safety, and they come in, they look at the project, and then they make recommendations to the owner on the safety of the project and things that could be improved. And with our new regulations, we've introduced some new terms. One is called the periodic inspection, and the other is comprehensive assessment. I'm going to talk about those a little more later, but I just want to familiarize you with the terms. In the periodic inspection is just kind of like a visual inspection. It's a smaller effort compared to the comprehensive assessment, which is a lot more work. It includes the PFMA that Jillian mentioned, along with what we're calling a level 2 risk analysis, which puts numbers to those failure modes that you identify, estimating the likelihood of it occurring, and then joining that with the consequence of the failure. And once that analysis is done, then we use that information to look at ways that we can reduce risk. So common terminology you'll hear is risk reduction measures, and it can refer to a lot of things. It could be like sometimes if there's like a interim or emergency risk reduction measure, it might talk about lowering a reservoir or restricting a reservoir, changing the way we operate it, maybe improving the EAP, making special provisions so we're ready to activate it more quickly and all the EMAs are on standby. Or it could also mean improving the monitoring, like Jillian was talking about, so that if there's a certain flood or loading condition that we're concerned with, we're looking at the dam more closely when the reservoir's at that elevation. Already covered hazard classification. So just from like a general standpoint, it's really easy to understand what dam safety is. We know how much energy is stored behind our dams, and if that all gets released at once, it can be devastating downstream. So that public safety aspect is easy to understand. But once we get into implementation, things get really complicated. And I think you could tell that from Jillian's presentation. It involves a lot because there's so many possible things that could go wrong. And even though these dams have been in operation safely for years, decades, maybe even 100 years. We have incidents where things unexpectedly pop up and there's a problem that we were never aware of in the life of the project, and suddenly people's lives are at risk. So it's challenge. It can be challenging and complex at times. So that's something to think about. And a lot of times what we have is kind of a combination of these events that we've never seen before that create the incident or failure. So who's responsible? I think Jillian kind of covered this already as far as the dam owner having principal responsibility, but they're not alone. They get recommendations from independent consultants or other consultants that they may bring in. And then FERC, we have an oversight role, and we also conduct our own inspections and provide oversight of dam safety, public safety, and security at the projects that we regulate. So the question of why do we need regulatory oversight? And we can go back to the 70s. Prior to the 70s, there was very little regulatory oversight of dam safety in this country, with the exception of California. In the 20s, St. Francis Dam failed, killing over 400 people, and they had already created their own dam safety program. But the rest of the country largely did not have that until the 70s, when these three major failures occurred. The first one in 1972 at Buffalo Creek. Within minutes, over 125 people were killed when that dam failed. The second one, Jillian showed a picture of Teton Dam. It was a Bureau of Reclamation dam, nearly 400 feet tall, failed on first filling, and 11 people lost their lives and over $1 billion in damage. And then the other incident, 1977, Kelly Barnes Dam in Georgia, failed, killing 39 students, most of them college kids. So these catastrophic dam failures collectively led to a series of national actions designed to ensure safety of America's dams. And there was also a major dam under FERC jurisdiction at that time that failed. There's a picture of Teton. If you're familiar with Walter Bolden, you don't hear about it a lot as a dam failure. Fortunately, no one died in this, but the project was in operation, I think 6 or 8 years, and then suddenly the left embankment here failed overnight rather quickly, and it was pretty devastating failure. No one died, but the losses to Southern Company, Alabama Power, were tremendous. $100 million in lost generation and cost of reconstruction, which would be close to $2 billion in 2023 dollars. So that project was remediated and in operation today. And I mention it because even though there was this momentum in the dam safety community and FERC was part of that, this incident here, this failure, is really what shaped the way our regulations were formed or changed 40 years ago. So in large part, our regulations were updated after this incident, and then they essentially didn't change for 40 years. So I'm gonna jump ahead to 2017, and most of you have probably heard about Oroville, but Oroville is the tallest dam in the U.S., about 800 feet tall. You can see in this in the right photo let me see if I can get a pen on here. Yeah, the embankment's over here. It's almost 800 feet tall. And what happened was during passage of normal flood flows, one of the slabs on this chute failed and ejected. And this spillway is enormous. The water's flowing over 100 miles an hour. And so great concern over the failure of that slab. They closed the gates at the top here, thinking they would allow the flow to pass over the auxiliary or emergency spillway, which is here. And in this photo, it's over in here. So as they were letting the water pass over the auxiliary spillway, they noticed that some scour was forming. And this scour was moving quickly up towards the base of the dam. And they had such great concern that they were going to lose this dam that they activated the EAP that Jillian talked about earlier. And being that this is the tallest dam in the U.S. and in a populated region, the inundation zone has over 200,000 people in it. So they evacuated approximately 200,000 people. And they didn't lose this dam. They reopened the gates and salvaged it. But because they had to allow these floodwaters to flow through, you can see the tremendous amount of flow and the damage that it caused around the spillway. So this has now been remediated. But it was a big deal for the licensee, California Department of Water Resources, and it was a big deal for FERC. There were 3 different audits that were done afterwards. One was the independent forensic team. Another one was done by FERC, and a third one was done by DOE. And the independent forensic team findings included these items, which the first one is that our existing programs weren't adequate for identifying and preventing some dam safety incidents like Oroville, and that we needed these new processes that included a comprehensive review of original design and construction with a comparison to current state of practice. Then we also needed risk assessments to evaluate complex systems and low probability events. So these things were already being done by the Corps and the Bureau of Reclamation. So these activities that we're doing to evaluate the safety of dams brings us to a level that's consistent with the Corps and the Bureau. And I know there is a large cost associated with it, but the cost of one Oroville is, I'm not sure what the total, I think it's multiple billions of dollars there. So if we can avoid those through these and protect downstream, the downstream public, that's really the goal of these things. So our new regulations went into effect in April of 2022. And these rules require alternating Part 12D inspections and they'll alternate between comprehensive assessments and PIs. They'll be performed by multidisciplinary teams. Those experts, you'd have civil engineer experts in, say, soils, structures, and hydrology and hydraulics, and often a geologist. If there are a lot of spillway gates at the project, you might also see mechanical engineers involved. So we're currently implementing the first round of these, and we're learning a lot as we go. But so far, I've seen the process be beneficial and positive feedback from licensees in most cases. So the other things that our regulations change, it just basically codified the ODSP requirements that Jillian talked about earlier, and also it now includes an external audit every 5 years. Also revised reporting procedures on public safety incidents. So that's, let me see, where are we for time? I think we're pretty good on time. I can end there and we can go to questions if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Will, if you have any more slides or anything, we have a little bit more time, but we can go to questions as well. I'm sure we'll have some questions for both of you. I know I do. Whatever you prefer. Yeah.
That's actually the end of my slides.
Okay.
But one thing I would point out that we didn't talk about a whole lot is public safety. FERC has been fortunate. There's been some major incidents and failures, but to date, we haven't lost any lives from a dam failure incident. But we have lost a lot of lives due to public safety incidents. And, water in general is dangerous already. People get in there with boats, consume alcohol, have a good time, and there's, things that happen. And then when we put a hydropower project in there, and we're changing releases, the flow regime changes downstream, it can trigger some dangerous conditions for fishermen, kayakers, all of the recreation that will be attracted to that project. So public safety plans and efforts to identify changes in recreation so that those plans can be updated. Those are important because it's we do see a lot of tragedy around these projects.
Yeah, it's a very vital part of it. Absolutely. So I think we're going to move into questions. We're going to do a 5-10 minutes of questions, then we'll have another speaker and a quick update at the end. So if anyone has any questions for Jillian or Will, please, camera on, microphone on, whatever you prefer, raise your hand and ask away. And we got one in the chat from Jessica. From a dam safety perspective, is it feasible to construct near an active fault line? If so, what is your biggest concern with that idea from your perspective? It's a good question.
Do you want to take it, Jillian, or do you want me to answer?
I'll let you answer it.
All right. So one thing that I learned is interesting about geology. Most of our rivers are located along fault lines. So that's where the rock was most weathered, and it's pretty common. Now in the southeast, in the eastern United States, the faults, they're not present at the surface like they are in the western part of the country. But we do have projects, and I believe the Corps of Engineers found one in the middle of their embankment. And so they're designing remediation across the fault line. So yes, it's a big challenge, and it's probably a costly challenge to deal with, but it is being dealt with and overcome.
Yeah, great
Thank
question.
You.
Anyone else have any other questions for our speakers? I'll have one. I'll take it to both of you. What is your favorite part of your job? Curious, what's your favorite part of being in this industry and doing what you do?
I'll go. Just getting out to these projects, they're amazing. And some of them, sometimes it's miserable. It's just so hot. But other times you're in like amazing areas of a country, and the projects are just amazing to see. Beautiful sites. I showed a few pictures, and you can understand why it'd be nice to be out there as opposed to sitting in an office.
Yeah. So I would have said the same exact thing. Is just every day I go out to a site. I just kind of am thankful that I'm able to do this job and that I'm in a beautiful location. But I will also say, having participated in some EAP functional exercises, just being able to communicate with our community that we operate in, with some of the relicensing exercises I've been in, while they can get heated, it's really great. I think the community really wants to understand who's operating in their area, what they do and what they're doing. I don't think that a lot of owners, or I don't know that a lot of owners actively communicate and tell like their side of the story of how they're trying to kind of be good stewards and how they're trying to keep their projects safe for the community. And so I enjoy just talking to the community that we operate in.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you both so much. We have one more speaker and a couple more announcements, so we're going to move on to him. But thank you both very much. This has absolutely been amazing. Learning some fun stuff today and some serious stuff, some very real stuff that happens with, dam safety and why it's important. So thank you.
All right.
Thanks. To move on. Going to move on to our next speaker, and our next speaker is Chris Hayes. Chris Hayes is the Senior Advisor of Technical Programs and Training for NHA. And we're going to have a look ahead at NHA's new training program and an update. So without further ado, over to you, Chris.
Hey, thanks, Norbert. Good to see you. It's been a while.
Good to see you. I know, it's been too long.
All right. So just wanted to speak to our new offering, which is officially called Hydropower Systems Principles Professional Development. I'll start with objectives and purpose here. So really multifaceted. We want to educate new hires and accelerate knowledge transfer. We want to train employees from other sectors of electric power, new to hydro. For those already working in hydro, SMEs in certain areas, looking to, let's say, broaden their knowledge base into other facets of the business, so to speak. Great opportunity to do that, and really, this is designed for anyone who wishes to learn, hydropower principles in general. So certainly different target audiences there. Relative to the course itself, there are eight modules that we are developing. So the first is dedicated to water to wires. So just an overview of the system. The second module gets into production planning and water management. Third is dam safety. Next gets into equipment, engineering and technology, followed by asset management, including reliability. So, the art of investment planning, including maintenance. So 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 10 years, as folks prepare their asset investment strategies over the long term. ISO 55000 ESC, for those of you who are familiar with that. Module 6 gets into markets. 7 touches on all things environment, and then we cap it off by touching on licensing, permitting, and policy. So relative to how we intend to deliver these 8 modules, there's going to be a 1-day crash course available, giving a little taste on each of these 8 modules. So, that question I love, you don't know what you don't know. That 1 day is certainly going to help to answer that for you. You'll get a feel for the terrain and to develop an appreciation for kind of the gaps you need to go and fill. And 1 day will provide a very good introduction to those 8 areas. And then there will be a 40-hour offering. So 8 modules times 5 hours each. So obviously a more detailed dive into each of those areas. In terms of the where, so obviously both the 1 day and the 40 hours will be available virtually, facilitator-led. So it's our intention to provide our first virtual 1-day opportunity in December, and the first 40-hour virtual opportunity beginning in January, with the intention of doing module 1 in January, module 2 in February. So 1 module a month starting in January, and then the next cycle will start in April, and so pretty much once a quarter we're going to offer that new classes, so to speak. And then over and above, there will be in-person opportunities, starting with the 1 day in Portland at Clean Currents. So October 8th, which is the Tuesday, we intend to make this opportunity available. And really with the intention of, let's say, tying that 1 day in person to our national events, so Waterpower included, and so let's say select regional meetings, but to be determined.
Awesome. This is all seems very exciting. Does anybody have any questions for Chris real quick about this, as this is being rolled out, and this is very exciting news? And I think we'll have a lot of folks out there, so a lot of folks that can do this, so it'll be fun.
Yeah. If I can just quickly add, Norbert.
Yeah.
In terms of the brain power behind this, the board appropriated a budget for us to go out and by RFP secure the time of SMEs who are building this out for us. So hopefully quality will be very high. We've also hired an instructional designer, so an SME in the art of delivering training and education. And we've also onboarded a learning management system. So you've got SMEs, an instructional designer, a proper LMS. So quite assemble a pretty solid team of to help deliver this. So
yeah, that's very exciting. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining and sharing that with the group today. We have a couple closing announcements. I'm going to go through those right now.
Thanks, guys.
Just hitting on the same stuff. Thanks, Chris. Just hitting on the same stuff from the beginning. Our Flow Summer Camp, Kelly dropped the link for that. And then next month will be a climate change and hydro discussion. So stay tuned for that. Clean Currents, October 7th through the 10th. Flow participants receive 50% off using the code FLOW, all caps. So we'll have an event out there. It'll be a really fun week. There is a effort right now looking for mentors. So the Waterpower Technologies office and NREL are currently in the process of recruiting mentors. The link is in the chat for that. That's a very, I would advise that for anyone. If you have the time to be involved with that, please do. It's a great student competition, and it's great to see where these aspiring students about to enter the industry are excited and ready, eager to ask questions. So that'll be good for the group. And then finally, we have one more survey. From the Ear to the River report. Kelly will have that in the chat. And if you have time, please go through that as well. So that is our call today. Thank you everyone for joining, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.